Hello, hello. This is the Creative Life in Motion podcast. I'm your host, Karen Wilson. Today, we're going to talk about something that gets talked about quite a bit. It's balance, and this is kind of like Bring On Balance Part Two. And I want to debunk, demystify what is balance? Like, what is work life balance? What is life balance? And how is it supposed to feel? And let's debunk, like, can we ever really find it? Is it balance we're looking for, or just a state of peace and happy and flow? Because balance is really a feeling. We can all feel like when we're out of balance, right? And when I just say those words, when you feel out of balance, tell me in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, what comes to mind when you think my life is out of balance? What's the first feeling, the first emotion that you have? For me, it's anxiety, angst, feeling frazzled, feeling like there's not enough time for anything. And then the other side of that, when I'm feeling quote unquote balanced, there's a lot of peace. I feel like, everything that I need comes easily to me. And, things flow out of my mind beautifully. Work goes well. The kids are perfect. The dog is perfect. My husband is perfect. And everything makes me feel light and airy and flowy. And maybe that happens once or twice a year. Okay. Maybe more than that. Okay. But when you're always chasing for that perfect feeling, when you're always looking for it, it can really set us up for disappointment. So let's talk about balance or flow or debunk it. Now, when I pull up here on Google, I'm going to pull up and this is one of our BFF chats. So, like, we're just going to chit chat about this. I'm going to share with you some of the tools that I use when I feel like things are out of whack, out of balance, out of flow. And then let's talk about what Google says. And this is the challenge that I'm challenging. I think that sometimes when we're given a list of things to do to restore balance, within that list there's a list of 20 or 30 things that we need to do to get one of those things done, right? Every single piece of, like, everything that you have on your to-do list for the day, for the week, for the month, for the year, usually has 20 other items attached to it, but they're like minuscule, right? Like they're teeny tiny little steps to get there. So you might have one big thing on your list and you wonder, why can I never reach this goal? It's because you're not accounting for all the little teeny tiny things that are attached to it that take your time, right? And that take effort. It's not only time, it's effort, and maybe it takes income. So let's just take a look at what Google has to say about finding ways to establish life balance. So to avoid feeling overwhelmed and burnt out, here are 5 ways to establish life balance. Number 1 is prioritize your time. Make a list of your daily activities and prioritize them based on their importance. Fill your cup first. Okay, so prioritize your time. How do I do that if I don't know what my priorities are, right? If I'm not really being honest with what I feel like fills my cup, or I'm serving everybody before I do anything for myself, then I'm not going to know what my priorities are if I sit with it. Now, so, what do you do to figure out what your priorities are? Well, usually, traditionally, and what's worked for, lots and lots of years, this is not going to be anything new to you. You go through a list of 10 to 12 items that are, that have to do with, work and relationships and faith and your health, and you base them on a score, right? How am I doing? 2 for 0 for this is flat. And then, 10 for if this is great. And then you take your lowest scores and you look at them. If they're meaningful to you and they're low, that's going to hurt. That's going to, like, hit you in the stomach. Like, oh, Like perhaps you're low on the priority list or low on your priorities scale, or like what you're not scoring well on. Say it's in with your relationship. It's like, I haven't had a date night in so long. Like, I'm just using this as an example here. But and I feel like I'm missing on this. Well, that's going to hurt. That's something that is not only going to make you feel bad inside, it can actually start to damage other areas of your life because you feel like you're not, you know, meeting that. And it's a very important factor. Usually, when it has to do with other people in our family, a loved one or whatever, we feel it hard. Now, if it has something to do with, say, yourself, say you feel like your mindset is suffering, or you feel like your body is suffering, you're not looking after it properly, or you've been trying to start my walking program and you keep not starting, and you want to prioritize your healthful lifestyle and you're not doing it. Well, that hurts. So if you get a low score for that, guess what? There's a ton of to-do lists, to-do items to get that back up. So traditionally, what's done is you go through this list of 10 to 12 items, right? Or 10 to 12 categories of your life, and you choose the ones that mean the most to you, that you want to raise the score in. And then you set a list of 10 goals. Now, if you're anything like me, those 10 goals are like lifetime goals. They're not goals that you can get done in 30 days. It's not a goal that you can, you can't go. Most people set goals way higher than the expectation of time, especially if you're someone that's a high achiever. Because when you set one of those goals, it has a lot of steps that goes along with it. So what I do, this is how I manage to set myself in a state of flow. Instead of thinking about all of these 12 things, right? Which are subcategories of the bigger picture. The the bigger picture on a macro scale is what helps to keep us, I feel like, in a state of flow, in a state of balance. Is if we're working on our mind, we're working on our bodies, and we're working on something that fulfills us in our purpose. So that's three things, right? So if you were to take it down from 12 categories down to three categories, and you were to say, okay, I want to get better in my mindset, then you can figure out, well, what is it in my mindset that needs to get better? Is it prayer? Is it motivation? Is it like, what is it? And then you can have that as your goal in that category. Secondary thing is, I need to make sure that my body is fueled, because my body is my home. My body is my vehicle. I Anything that I want in life, we're attached. So if I want to go and do something, I need to take care of this envelope. I need to take care of this vehicle. And I'm not talking anything about like worrying about how much you weigh or how you look, or, you know, anything like that. I'm talking about making sure that it's going to be able to come for the ride with you, right? So that's thinking about, how am I moving my body that's going to make it stronger, more resilient, and also feel safe? How am I going to put things into my body to make sure that it's feeding my cells, nurturing the energy that I want to produce? So those are kind of the things. If you're feeling like you're falling short in that category, then set a goal. Set a goal in that category. So you have a category for your mind. Now you have a category for your body. Now there's a category for purpose. Now this is something that can fall into like quite a large catchment area. And usually where I find the most powerful thing, when I work with people one-on-one, where I found the most powerful thing that within the purpose is usually a project that they cannot put a tangible income to first, but they feel a calling to do it. So it might be writing a book. It might be creating an online course. It's something that right now the investment is time and maybe a little bit of money for somebody to help coach them through the process. But that's a difficult one to grasp onto. And that's usually when, just like the body thing, it slides off our to do list because everybody and everything else seems to win like the spot in what we do for the day. So when you sit down to do your to-do list, you'll notice more and more like once, and tell me if this happens to you, right? You look down at your to-do list and you notice that your entire day is based on everybody else's priority, right? And if it gets to that point, it's probably in a spot where you're out of balance. You're out of flow and you're not happy because there's this little voice that never stops. It won't stop. Once you start it, you cannot stop. So you might know that, yeah, I need to get up and I need to move today. But then the email comes in or the phone rings and you're called into work or or whatever, like the emergencies start to happen and you put yourself aside. Well, the same can be true for anything working along in your purpose. So the same can be true for if you're trying to write a book, right? And everything else is taking up that workspace and work time. So you don't have that dedicated hour a day that it takes to write a book or maybe write your podcast or do your YouTube videos, whatever it is that you're doing that you cannot justify a monetization on it yet. You can't say, I'm doing this because it's making money. So you don't. You don't do it. You do everything else. And quietly, the whispers that are calling on you to fulfill this purposeful thing. Maybe it's acting in theater, maybe it's doing art, maybe it's doing something that is just completely self-serving, makes you disappear, maybe it's music. You don't need a validation through money to make it valuable. It's one of the most valuable things that you have in your energy vortex. When you combine these three things that I'm talking about, when you combine the mindset, the healthy mindset, whether that's feeding it with more education that's going to help you get to the next level, feeding it with more mindset, more of the pulling in the positive vibes and the positive energy and really connecting with the universe, pulling that through the body. So as you move your body, you move that energy through. If you're not moving your body, energy becomes stuck and it just sits there. And then, so you're moving it through your body and then your purpose, it will just completely leak out. It's effortless when the three of them are flowing together. Things are more synergistic. And I think that that's the state by which we feel balance with that state of bliss, that state of flow when we're activating all all of these things together. So that's how I approach the priorities. So when I sit down and I'm like, okay, well, what's my priority for this month? I'll look at those three categories and whichever one has been getting the least amount of attention, that's the one that goes at the top. And then I go to other, other things that I've done before that, i- it's no mystery to you, eat that frog, do the hard thing first. And that's exactly how I take it. It's like for me, it's a no-brainer. I like to exercise daily. I enjoy how it makes me feel. So I don't always have to have that first thing in the morning. It's no longer an eat that frog thing. Now I usually have to put something in like writing a piece in there. And because that's where I get the best stuff because I'm kind of in that state of nothing else has affected me throughout the day. So whatever comes out comes out fresh. It hasn't been, jaded. I hate to say that, but sometimes, as we go through the day, you start checking social media, you start doing all these other things, and it can slowly start to have our mindset leak out of our bodies. Okay. So let's go back to Google. I've had my little rant on that. I'd love to hear what you think about it. But I'm going to just go back to Google. And the second thing that helps you avoid feeling overwhelmed and burnout. So the first thing is prioritize your time. And we've gone through the whole kind of Cole's notes on how to figure out how you're going to prioritize your time. And then the next thing to do, number two, is to create a schedule. Plan your day in advance and create a schedule that includes time for work, family, friends, exercise, and hobbies. Make sure to stick to your schedule as much as possible to avoid feeling overwhelmed. I don't know about you, but I think that that's a lot to pack in a day. In one day, I need to make sure that I have time for work, family, friends, exercise, and hobbies, and stick to my schedule as much as possible. Have you worked from home ever? Have you ever had a home office and been disrupted 20 million times a day from all these different things? And, sometimes they're hobbies, sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're family, sometimes they're dogs. And then you try to get everything done on time. Well, I do have a way that helps me stay on track with the schedule, and I kind of talked about this in the previous chunk about making sure that the day starts with me, my morning routine, my grounding, and my I work on my mindset first, and then I dig deep into my purpose with whatever I'm writing, whatever I'm putting out into the world. And then I will exercise. So that's how I start my day, and with those three things stack to stack. Then the rest of the day, I usually use time blocking. I have usually more than one project on the go at any given time. And if they're not scheduled during the day, then they don't get the time that they need. What I found in bouncing back and forth from time blocking to time daying, like sometimes I'll work on just one project per day, it's very difficult to try and figure out which one is best, because usually you're always leaving something undone. And if there's no white space in your calendar, like that's another thing, danger that can happen from packing too many things in, is that you end up eating lunch at your desk, or you end up, you have no white space to go to the bathroom. Like you've scheduled yourself too thick packing in your days. So when you do schedule your day, especially if you work from home like I do, ensure that you have a lot of white space. So for an example, I have two activities that I do per day that take me away from the desk, and this is during the workday. The first one is either a workout or a walk with my dog. The second one is either a workout or a walk with my dog. Depending on weather and my schedule, I'll swap that out, but one will usually get done at lunch and one will get done at in the morning, which means I take an extended lunch because I'll have to clean up, and I allow myself that space because then I'll usually go back to work from 2 to 5. I have this rejuvenation of creativity, a creative splash, if you will. And then that allows me to shut off at 5. It's not easy. There's always things that will distract you from your own schedule. And so when I start at the beginning of the week, I always look at, okay, what do I know is achievable this week? And then I usually cut that in half, because you have to allot the time for distractions. So if you think that in your timeline, for example, if you think that you can build somebody a landing page for their website, say you're a creative person like me, or you help other creatives and you're building a landing page, and you know that project is going to take you about 12 hours, right? And maybe it'll take you 6, but it probably will only take you 6, but pretend like it's going to take you 12, because there's always going to be other things that go along with it. There's going to be emails back and forth with the client. There's going to be looking for things, looking for resources, looking for, pictures. You get the gist of it. There's going to be a lot of things that are attached to that one item that you might not have even planned for. So that's another tip that always use when I'm scheduling my week, so that I'm not feeling overstuffed, right? Because once you feel that overstuffed, then everything starts to fall off the plate. Okay, so what's next that Google says? Set boundaries. Yes. Ensure that you have time for yourself and loved ones. Well, I think that this is a whole setting boundaries. I think it's a whole podcast on its own because, again, it's a whole thing that's attached to a million different things on its own, right? Setting boundaries. Well, first, you have to understand where and if your boundaries and sometimes, you can put those walls up a little too high. I've done that too. And so that's a whole exercise in itself. And I think I'll probably do another podcast just based on boundaries. I think I already have one. If I do, I'll link it below and you can find that one. But boundaries are a tough one. One of the best boundary builders that I have is a smartphone boundary builder, right? I've use that myself, and it's in the Ideas in Motion planner and journal. And it's basically a lot of times the biggest boundary we need to put on is our smartphone. So we're not answering clients in the grocery store lineup, or when we're playing in the park with our kids, we're not answering emails that are coming in. We're really present to where we are. That's going to help you feel like you're in a state of flow or balance if you can just shut that off. Set yourself quote unquote work hours. Even if you work for yourself, you have to have work hours. You have to have off hours. All right, what else does Google say? Practice self-care, sleep, eating a healthy diet, exercising regularly, and taking time for relaxation and stress relief. Okay, so we've already, touched on that, and I feel like that could be done with a solid morning routine. However, that can also get you in a danger zone if you exercise first thing and then you sit all day, right? So putting in that taking care of your body, not just trying to lose weight or whatever, like really taking care of your body. That's where that's again, it's another it's got a whole list attached to that one statement that deserves huge exploring. Learn to disconnect is number 5. So set aside time each day to disconnect from technology, social media, spend time in nature, read a book, engage in a hobby that brings you joy. Learning to disconnect can help you and recharge and be more present in your personal and professional life. Yeah. And so that is coupled with the boundaries. If you have good, healthy boundaries, then you will be able to disconnect. That will be quite simple. Okay. So before this gets too long, this is where Google got it right. Balance is not something that you achieve once and for all, but rather something you need to actively work on every day. Well, that's the same with the state of flow. And that's kind of brings it back to how I was talking about in the beginning, how I was going for a walk this morning and I was thinking about my hormones because I'm like perimenopausal, I know, TMI, but how it's been my job for the past 3 years since, I had a real bonk with my hormones to just make sure that my body feels safe. And I feel when the hormones are fluctuating. Like you can actually feel it when everything is kind of out of flow. I get all kinds of warning signals. And then I know that it's time. Oh, yeah, I'm in the luteal phase. It's time to really nourish myself. It's time to make my body feel safe because it's working towards that next cycle. And so if you're a woman, you're over 35, that's one of the biggest things that I would recommend is get to know your cycle because that's going to help you through the fluctuations It's going to help you understand what your body is going through. So when those waves come, you are more resilient to ride them and know that, you're safe, and this feeling of unrest that you might be feeling, just go back to what we were talking about in the beginning and think about, well, what am I doing for my mind? What am I doing for my body? And what am I doing for my purpose? And when you activate all three of them, the state of flow starts to come. It doesn't happen overnight, right? It never happens overnight when when you find yourself in a state of, not feeling your best. It never happens overnight. It's a cumulative effect of you know, many months, sometimes many years. And then all of a sudden it's like bonk. And so it takes time to reset everything. It takes time to reset yourself. So make sure that you're patient with yourself in the pursuit of balance. Now, if you found this helpful or flow, do you think there's balance? Like how do you feel about that word? Do you feel like it's achievable? And what is the feeling when I say, when life is in balance? Have you ever been there? And what did it feel like? And how long did it last? And what's your secret? How do you do it? And how do you I'd love to maybe have you on the show and we'll have a talk about it. Like, do you get that feeling in your gut that just starts to churn where it's like, oh, this can't be good. This can't be good. I'm about to fall off the teeter totter. That's what it is. And then you readjust, right? Anyways. Okay, if you found this helpful, make sure that you leave a review if you're listening to a podcast player, or let me know in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube. What would you like to talk about next? Because you're my BFF, and these are BFF chats, creative life in motion. And it's all about, our life is in motion and we're all creative. So when you refuse that altogether, like, look at the magic we make, right? Anyways, bye for now. I'll see you next time.